All right, so the Republican health care bill has officially, at least for the time being, hit a dead end. Now, last night on this program, we told you that the reason Republicans are in this position without a vote to repeal and replace Obamacare is because this legislative process has been way too contentious, unorganized, and disjointed. Now, on a positive side, it's actually a bigger tent party, the Republican Party, than anyone really imagined. But the fact is, after 7 long years of Republicans promising to repeal, replace Obamacare, not getting the job done is unacceptable. Anyway, here's what Speaker Ryan said earlier today.
Moving from an opposition party to a governing party comes with growing pains. And, well, we're feeling those growing pains today. We came really close today, but we came up short.
All right, Speaker Ryan's right. They did come up short, and we need to make sure this never happens again. Let me be very clear here. This is not President Trump's failure. The president went above and beyond, did everything in his power to get this bill across the finish line. And here's how the president reacted this afternoon. Take a look.
We're just a very small number of votes short in terms of getting our bill passed. A lot of people don't realize how good our bill was because they were viewing phase 1, but when you add phase 2, which was mostly the signings of Secretary Price, who's behind me, and you add phase 3, which I think we would have gotten, it became a great bill. Premiums would have gone down, and it would have been very stable, it would have been very strong.
All right, I will admit earlier today I was pretty angry about all of this. This shouldn't have happened, but the bottom line at this point, what's done is done. And what has actually emerged here, in my mind, is a huge opportunity if it is used wisely. Now, before I talk about how we can avoid these mistakes and fix this problem, I want to first address the Democrats and members of the alt-left, radical, destroy Trump propaganda media. They're absolutely giddy at what happened today. Now, let's start by looking at how Democrats were behaving on the House floor today before the bill was even pulled. Look at the insanity of their rhetoric.
This is a bad joke on America. Here we are, the Choice Act. The choice is get sick or go broke.
This bill will unravel health care for all Americans.
We are in Lent. It's supposed to be the holiest time. Whatever you do to the least of my brothers, you do unto me. Think about that before you vote for this bill. Please vote against it.
It is not liberty for a woman to be forced to go to work within weeks of having a child. That's what this bill would do.
Yes, I want to ask why the Democratic microphone is turned off. The last 2 speakers we've not been able to hear as well as we heard Ms. Cheney, and I want to know why that is. I hope somebody hears my plea and that the parliamentarian will take care of this problem. This debate is too important to have our microphones at a lower scale.
Older Americans are going to pay for a tax cut for the richest people in this nation. Older Americans are going to be hit the hardest. What does the GOP stand for? Get old people. That's what this bill does.
Yeah, get old people. All right, all you snowflake Democrats, you may be happy this bill was scrapped, but guess what? You're not going to be smiling for long, and that's a promise. Now, since Obamacare was not repealed and replaced, guess what? The country is now going to see just how devastating your statism and how dangerous this law really is. Now, back in February, the CEO of Aetna said Obamacare is in a death spiral. It's only going to get worse. We see premiums now skyrocketing in some places by 117%. Really? Are you happy about that? Is that something to smile about? Are you really happy that over the last decade, in the Obama years, people's plans have gone up $5,400 on average? Democrats, you happy about that? Are you really happy? So many millions of Americans have lost their doctors. By the way, something President Obama and you promised would never happen. Are you really happy? No family saved $2,500 per family per year. Another Obamacare lie and disappointment. But don't worry, Democrats, you're going to be forced to own this mess because you created this mess. So be as happy as you want today because Americans will see day after day after day firsthand the devastation and the impact of your bad policies. Now, how do we talk about and how do we make sure this never happens again? It's really important to look back and examine what went wrong here so Republicans are not in this position again. Second, Republicans, they've got to go back to the table, this time build a consensus bill. Didn't happen this time. Now, for example, before the GOP Obamacare replacement bill was rolled out, we heard from many House GOP lawmakers right here on this show saying they had no idea what was in that bill that was being scored in the CBO. Take a look. You guys are worried you haven't seen the repeal and replace bill. All four of you have told me that.
I got to see the bill before I can agree to anything. I'm kind of anal like that. I'd like to read the bill. You remember 2010? We all said, if you elect us, you give us the majority, we will read the bill.
If you don't learn from your mistakes, you're doomed to repeat them. All right, that's mistake number one. And at the very least, Republicans had a major communications problem as it relates to this bill. So the big question tonight is, all right, going forward, how do we make sure this never happens again? Now, for starters, I would say to the Republican leadership, before you release any bill, there has to be a consensus built from all the different factions of the GOP. In other words, the moderates, the study group, the Tuesday group, the Wednesday group, the Saturday group, the Sunday group, and yes, the Freedom Caucus. All right? Then you won't need a big fight on national TV and radio. In the future, what I would do is the following. Bring everybody into the room. Start the process of building that bill with everybody I just mentioned, knowing and telling everybody they're not going to get everything that they want. Sort of like signing a contract before actually negotiating the terms. You have it backwards. And that means getting everyone in the same room, members of the Senate, Secretary Price, conservative think tanks, moderates, GOP study group, Freedom Caucus, everybody, the White House, make sure the bill is not released until you have consensus on the bill. Now, this would take a lot of the ugliness out of the process. Now the president is moving on. He's forging ahead with his agenda. And remember, he's been keeping all his promises. He's checking those things off his list one by one. So what does this mean going forward? Well, hopefully the Republican leadership has learned a hard lesson. And our elected officials need to take a deep, long, hard, introspective look about how they do business. And my advice is, don't put bills together without consulting all these factions within your party. It will serve the American people better. And one thing's clear, voters were not served well in this process, but you will have time for a do-over.